Hello, Internet. It is I, Malik Aaron, and welcome back to my Winter 2020 box office predictions. And today, we're going to be talking about Bad Boys for Life, aka Bad Boys 3. The long, and I do mean long, awaited follow up to Bad Boys 2. A movie that took 17 years to get made. 17. Put that in perspective, the gap between the first Bad Boys and the second Bad Boys was 8 years. It took twice as long for them to make a third Bad Boys. So yeah, let that sink in. So we're going to go over the pros and cons for Bad Boys for Life. So let's get to it. Actually, before we get to the pros, I realize that a decent amount of you may not know what Bad Boys is, so I'm gonna have to give a quick little history lesson about the series. That way, everybody's caught up. Nobody has any questions. So let's get started on that. So the year was 1995, a year that had such movies as Toy Story, GoldenEye, Batman Forever, Waterworld. A small little movie called Bad Boys came out, which starred then up-and-comers Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, who were mainly known for their TV work. Martin Lawrence was known for the show Martin, and Will Smith was known for the show that everybody knows, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And the first Bad Boys was directed by then up-and-coming filmmaker Michael Bay. Yes, that Michael Bay. The same Michael Bay who crapped on Transformers, who crapped on Ninja Turtles, who crapped on Pearl Harbor. Yes, that guy made the first Bad Boys movie. And while the movie wasn't a critical darling, it still did really well financially. I mean, the movie only cost like $19 million, made $138 million worldwide. So it was a success, and it was a good launching point for all three men's careers. So after the first Bad Boys, everybody went their separate ways. Will Smith hit the big time with Independence Day and Men in Black. Martin Lawrence would eventually have his successful Big Mama's House series. And Michael Bay went on to direct blockbusters like The Rock, Armageddon, and Pearl Harbor. So fast forward 8 years. All three men have way more box office credibility now, and they decided to make a Bad Boys 2. And they decided to release it in the summer of 2003, which was quite a competitive summer. I mean, you had movies like The Matrix Reloaded, Bruce Almighty, Finding Nemo, X-Men 2, Too Fast, Too Furious, Hulk, Charlie's Angels, Terminator 3, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Freddy vs. Jason. Like, it was competitive. And despite the sequel being trashed by critics, it actually doubled its predecessor when it comes to box office, which is obviously fantastic. I mean, that's what you want a sequel to do. A sequel's supposed to make way more than the first. But the only problem with the sequel is that it was a little too expensive, because the sequel cost $130 million, which is way higher than the $19 million for the first movie. So there wasn't too much profit for the second movie, but still, at the end of the day, it was successful in theaters, and it probably sold a crap ton of copies on DVD. I'm not entirely sure, but I can imagine it sold pretty well. So again, everybody went their separate ways. Will Smith did movies like I, Robot, Hitch, Pursuit of Happiness, I Am Legend, Hancock. Martin Lawrence continued his Big Mama's House movies, and Michael Bay went on to destroy the Transformers series. So again, fast forward 17 years, and here we are, Bad Boys for Life. Will Smith and Martin Lawrence return, while Michael Bay does not, because Michael Bay was so busy with the Transformers movies, and he recently did a Netflix movie called Six Underground, which I heard from everyone that it was trash. So, yeah. This movie is being made by different people, some filmmakers from Belgium. I'm not even going to try to pronounce their names because I know I'm going to get them wrong. But, yeah, that's where we are now. So that's your history lesson of Bad Boys. So now, let's get to the pros. Pros! Now, despite the first two movies not being received very well by critics, audiences seem to dig these movies, right? which is apparent considering how successful both of the first two movies were. And I think the reason why is because they're popcorn movies. They're movies that you can just watch on a normal day when you're not doing much, and just have a good time seeing Will Smith and Martin Lawrence, you know, kicking ass and cracking jokes. Like that's all the first two movies were, and people love them. And what really helped those first two movies was the chemistry between Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Like they had some fantastic chemistry because, like in a buddy cop movie, having chemistry is essential. If you don't have chemistry, you have failed. You failed miserably. So it's clear people love seeing these two guys together. So, for the third movie, despite the 17-year-long wait, I feel like people will be excited seeing these two again, on the big screen, doing their thing. So, yeah, that's the first pro. The first pro is that the whole series has been successful despite very long gaps between the movies because audiences just like these movies. That's pro number one. Pro number two is that January has been kind of dry recently, with the exception of 1917, of course. Hasn't been too much going on, and of all the movies in January, this one has to be, the most event-worthy movie other than 1917. So, yeah, that's the second pro, is that this movie has no real competition in sight for actually a while. So, that's a positive. Third pro is that preview-wise, Thursday night preview numbers came in, and it did phenomenal for January. Like, opened to 6.3 million on Thursday, which is insane. You want to know how insane that is? That's bigger than American Sniper, which currently has the January record of like 89 million for the 3-day and 107 million for the 4-day because it was Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, which is the same weekend this movie's coming out. Now, will Bad Boys for Life beat American Sniper? No. That's not going to happen. American Sniper was an anomaly. That American Sniper's performance, it will never be easy to replicate. So don't expect Bad Boys for Life to set the new record. But it will at least be a strong number 2. That much is guaranteed, judging by the preview numbers. Another pro is that the reviews for this movie are actually quite strong, which shocked me to my core because I thought it would be at least mixed to negative, to just be like, it's just another Bad Boys movie, it's whatever. But the reviews are actually quite strong for this. So, good reviews never hurt. Never. So, that's another pro. Trying to think of another one. Oh, another pro that came off the top of my head. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend has been very lucrative in the past for many movies, including American Sniper. The first movie that really, took off when it came to Martin Luther King Jr. weekend was the re-release of A New Hope in 1997. That movie held the January record for a solid 11 years before it was beaten by Cloverfield, which was then eventually beaten by Ride Along. And Ride Along is a very good comparison to Bad Boys for Life. it's very obvious. Both are buddy comedies. Both star very, popular actors. Ride Along starred Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. This stars Will Smith and Martin Lawrence. Both are aimed, towards, predominantly black audiences. Both are coming out the same weekend. Makes sense, even though, honestly, I think, Bad Boys, although both are action comedies, I think Bad Boys leans more towards action than comedy, and Ride Along leans more towards comedy and action. At the end of the day, the Ride Along movies, both of them, did very well. In fact, the first Ride Along broke the January record till that record was destroyed by American Sniper. And then the sequel to Ride Along 2, although it didn't perform quite as well, still opened quite strong, for MLK Jr. weekend. So yeah, That's definitely a pro for Bad Boys for Life, opening on a very historically lucrative weekend. Now, cons. Yes, there are some cons. At least some cons. At this point, I don't think there's any cons with this movie because it's doing amazing. I just looked up early numbers and it's doing phenomenal, but still, these are like the cons I would have like if I did this video a couple days ago because I didn't know anything, what was going on with this movie. So first con is that it's been 17 years since the last one. Now normally, the ideal time frame to release a sequel would be like 2 to 3 years after its predecessor, while the iron is still hot, everybody still remembers it. That way, it's still in everybody's mind, right? But once you go past 3, and once you're like in the 10-year zone, it's dangerous. It really is, because there's a good chance a decent amount of people have forgotten the series, right? And although, I did some research, I remembered like several action series that have had long breaks between movies, movies like, Die Hard, Terminator, Mad Max, those types of movies. While Mad Max and Die Hard, did pretty well despite their long gaps. I mean, Mad Max, the gap was 30 years. And Die Hard was about 12 years. And despite, the fourth Die Hard being infamously PG-13, it still was the biggest movie of the series, if you ignore inflation. And then Terminator 3, although it wasn't as good as Terminator 2, it still did okay at the end of the day, and it did way better than every movie that came after it. So, this one's a very good, it's a comparison that Bad Boys for Life really, I mean, it doesn't mean anything now, but, recently, this past summer, we had Shaft 2019, came out a good 19 years after Shaft 2000, and it did awful, box office wise. I thought it wouldn't, but it did just atrocious. So, and I thought Bad Boys for Life, it needed to be more of a Die Hard 4 rather than a Shaft 2019. Nobody wants to be a Shaft 2019. That's the way you don't want to go. But at its current pace, Bad Boys for Life is clearly going to avoid the Shaft scenario. And another con is that, Martin Lawrence has been in a movie since 2011 with Big Mama's House 3. And Will Smith, recently, it's not been great for him. He's had 2 back-to-back flops in Gemini Man and Spies in Disguise. But I think the difference is that, those 2 movies were both original IPs, while, this one is based off a very popular series that pretty much made him. So, people are going to be way more excited about Bad Boys for Life than Gemini Man and Spies in Disguise, obviously. But, yeah, that's about it. That's all I can really come up with for Bad Boys for Life. Opening weekend, if I made this video earlier, I would have said it would have opened with 40-something million for the 4-day weekend, like 40 to 45, which would have been okay. But look at these early numbers. I'm going to have to boost my prediction a lot. So I think it's going to open, trying to think. Well, it's a holiday weekend, so it could be a bit confusing. But for the 3-day weekend, I think it's going to open between 55 and 60. And for the 4-day weekend, it's going to open between 65 and 70. Which would be the second biggest Martin Luther King Jr. opening weekend of all time, only behind American Sniper, way ahead of both ride-along movies, and even ahead of Bad Boys 2, remarkably. So considering how many sequels have tanked over the last year, this is actually incredible. So, yeah. That's my prediction, and I forgot opening weekend. Overall, probably reach 150 million, maybe a bit more than that. Somewhere in that range. Worldwide, I don't know. maybe 300, I think. Because the budget for this was actually under control. It was like $90 million. So at least they didn't go crazy with the budget, which is something I can't say about Doolittle, which I'm going to talk about next video. Get ready. Can't wait for that. But yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment. You want to go check out some of my other predictions. I have a Winter 2020 playlist on the homepage. I recently did a December 2019 recap video. I now have like a playlist on the homepage for those videos. So if you want to go check those out, go right ahead. And God, Doolittle. Sometimes I just hate what I do, and it's movies like these that kind of make me hate what I do, but it's still enjoyable to an extent. But yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out.